Good morning and welcome back to Community Chapel 2026, and it's been a year already. Good morning to everyone. My name is Reverend Ann Jefferson, commonly known as Ms. Ann, Reverend Ms. Ann, Pastor Ann, Auntie Ann, all kinds of. And it's my privilege to serve as the Director of Community Life and Spiritual Care and Campus Pastor and Coordinator of Chapel. So we want to invite you. I want to both welcome you, and in the words of Howard Thurman, I want to invite you to take a moment to center down as we begin this time of community worship. We invite you to remember that the land upon which PSR lives out its mission is sacred and holy ground. It's the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the descendants of the sovereign Verona Band. Feel the strength of this ground which sustains us all. Remember those who faithfully stewarded it for centuries, and in humility know that in this place we are all immigrants. Because we are living through a time of such extreme turbulence on many levels, personally, communally, nationally, globally. A couple of things. When you came in, you maybe saw some cards at the entrance to the chapel, and there are members of our community who had significant transitions over the holidays, so we invite you to sign. There's one card for our sibling Kathleen, who lost her sister over the holiday. There's a card for our brother Lee Daniel. Please sign that. There's also a card for our sister Eva Kadroka, who is recovering from an aneurysm and is in rehab. And so we want to send communal love to our siblings as we do that. Because we are living through a time of such extreme turbulence, we will collectively engage some centering practice each week so that we can build and sustain our resilience and capacity to remain grounded and rooted like a tree planted by the waters, as the psalmist and the prophet Jeremiah reference. So join me in this brief meditation from a website called Fierce Kindness, and hear the words of the prophet Jeremiah. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in the Holy One. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought, and it never fails to bear fruit. So as you are comfortable, begin by closing your eyes or relaxing them gently, and ensure that your feet are flat on the floor. Take your first deep breath in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Now take a second deep breath in through your nose, and as you breathe out slowly through your mouth, imagine your energy gradually sinking down to your feet. The floor is solid underneath your feet, and your feet may begin to feel heavy. On your next breath in, imagine again your energy sinking down to your feet, and this time imagine also your feet sending roots deep into the earth. Imagine feeling grounded, safe, solid. You are now deeply connected to the earth and its rich, powerful energy, and as you continue to send roots into the earth, your presence continues to solidify. Feel deeply connected to yourself and your body, and also the network of trees that surround you. Take another breath in, and this time imagine being your favorite kind of tree. Thriving, flourishing with your roots deep in the soil beneath your feet. Breathe again. Notice a feeling of calmness that is available to you. If anxious thoughts come through your mind, simply observe them and let them pass like leaves floating on the surface of water. Perhaps you can now notice that energy is flowing back into you from the earth, directly beneath you. And take a moment to enjoy this experience or this feeling or sensation of deep calm and self-connection for one more breath. And then as you are able and ready, you may open your eyes and return to the chapel in the Badè. But know that this is a practice that is available to you at any time. God bless you. Welcome. At this time, we're going to have President David Vasquez-Levy come.
Good morning. Good morning. It is good to be here. It is good to be with one another and to celebrate the beginning of a new semester. Let's give Ms. Ann a hand of applause as she reminds us how to be in community and worship. I pray for the music and the gather of the semester, gratitude. Matthew making sure that we're connected to the roots as well as to the wires. All over the place, I had this very kind of wacky image in my head of the roots of the trees connected to all of you, to everybody online, through both physical wires as well as all these ways we can connect to one another and be rooted. So thank you. It is wonderful to be together and to be here. A special welcome to those of you who today begin your journey at Pacific School of Religion. If you are new students, welcome. Please stand. Online folks a little bit, and just kind of, so if you're a new student joining us today for the first time in chapel, if you wouldn't mind standing up so we can see you and welcome you and be grateful Great to have you here. I know we have a number of others also online that are joining us, so thank you as we welcome you to a very distinct, particular, sometimes bizarre, queer, excited community. And as we were invited to think about trees and life, I have been struck, of course, at this time of year, by the arrival of the magnolias. And if you are here in Berkeley or other parts of the Bay, I encourage you to take some time and pay attention to these trees that have no leaves, that first bloom richly with color. The red buds that are out here, also beginning to bring new life. A reminder in the midst of sometimes stressful moments of life that we do bloom, that we celebrate. And so this is an opportunity for us to celebrate. We welcome just with a couple of announcements as well in terms of the beginning of the semester, or just a couple of things about folks that will not be journeying with us through the semester. Professor Lisa Azedelio is on sabbatical this spring, and so we keep her in prayer as she tends to research work that she is doing over this semester. We also are saddened to have shared the news about Professor McMahon's decision to depart. And so you saw that in your emails as he tends to family matters, and so he will be leaving the PSR community. We also, keep in prayer those who are traveling. Professor Bernie Schlager joins the community remotely in the spring as he's in phase retirement. And Aaron Brody, Professor Brody, is actually in Jerusalem at a conference today as well. So we have a number of our faculty as we begin the semester kind of joining remotely. Of course, we also have Professor Lawrence that usually joins chapel online. And so we're grateful to have that as we begin the semester with our faculty. This is indeed a critical time. So it is important that we gather in community. And I hope for those of you who are returning and those of you who are new, that we will make this space, this time, once a week, an important space of gratitude, of service, of grounding ourselves, of reminding us that we are not on this journey alone. Part of that community is a large community of alums who have come through this place, and I want to welcome today especially David Urisman, who is one of our alums. Welcome, David. David will be our preacher in 2 weeks, and he will also be doing a book talk on his book that is coming out this week, One Life, 4 Stories, that is a study of the Gospels that is intended to be kind of bridge that gap between the academic world and the congregational life to understand that. So welcome, David. Thank you for being with us. And so with that, we will turn it back over to the service. Thank you very much.
All right, would you join us in the opening congregational song? It's O God of Love. This is a time of turning.
2 verses.
timidity or cowardice or fear, but he has given us a spirit of power and of love and of sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in a calm, well-balanced mind and self-control.
Well, if St. Paul and I had a relationship status, the category would be hella complicated. I agree completely with half of what he said and disagree completely with the other half. Our pericope for today, in isolation, is agreeable. But the letters to Timothy as a whole are quite challenging, even as it provides guidance on what church leadership looks like. In 1988, I represented the Diocese of Bombay, I refuse to call it Mumbai, as you all know, on a visit to Rome. Part of our visit was also to some of the most famous cathedrals and basilicas of Roman Catholicism, St. Peter's, Santa Maria Maggiore, St. John Lateran, and St. Paul's outside the walls. That's what the Basilica of St. Paul's is called. I was very nervous to go and visit the Basilica of St. Paul's. It is called St. Paul's outside the walls because it is built outside of Rome's Aurelian walls, which were built by the Emperor Aurelian between the years 271 and 275 of the Common Era. My contentious relationship with Paul is rooted in the first letter to Timothy, mainly because in my teens, the priests that I worked with in my parish in Bombay would often quote from the first letter to Timothy, chapter 2, verse 1, in which Paul talks about leadership in the church and how people should comport themselves. Women, it was asserted, should remain silent and never presume to teach or have authority over men. And then I was born. What annoyed me about this was that it was the same priests who would quote these passages to me while bringing to me half-written and grammatically incorrect sermons or bare bones of homilies that they had to preach that week. So I was teaching them anyway, but with no access to the Catholic pulpit. So it was not without some measure of trepidation and anxiety that I approached the Basilica. The entrance to the Basilica features a gigantic, colossal statue of St. Paul. And I remember looking at it, wondering if this is what he really looked like. I was also younger. Some construction was taking place that day when I was visited, so all the pews inside the Basilica had been removed. I remember entering this space, and what immediately struck me was an overpowering sense of alienation and utter loneliness, gazing up through the central nave at the images of various popes from various centuries, gazing down at the worshippers below. They were obviously all white and all male. I was overcome with grief, and I fell sobbing to the floor, wondering why I was wasting my time with this monolith of Christian monarchical patriarchy. For other complex reasons, I stayed. In my own work with the Catholic Church, which eventually led me to the study of theology in the United States. During my course of study, I learned, among many other things, that the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls had burned to the ground in 1823. Not only that, in all of its history, it had been subjected to earthquakes, conquests, and other events that continually destroyed the existing structure, which was also then continually being rebuilt. Moreover, after the Great Fire of 1823, when the Basilica was almost completely destroyed, the then Pope Leo XIII, had very grand plans to build the basilica back in an identical manner to its first design in the year 324 under Pope Sylvester. This was obviously not to be. The grand plans of popes and the grand plans of us are nothing compared to the plans of God. The costs were astronomical, and the Vatican had to make many compromises to get money from donors. And these included Muhammad Ali Pasha, the then Viceroy of Egypt, and also the Emperor of Russia. Over the course of the centuries, this cathedral has been rebuilt, rerouted, and regrounded. It stands today as a testament in some ways to Roman Catholic supremacy, but also to the power of cooperation and common vision. While it stands on one level as a sign of Catholic masculine patriarchal and monarchical priesthood, it is on another level a sign of persistence and collaboration across multiple divisions, including interreligious cooperation. It became important for me to keep in mind that all I know of Paul in the Bible is filtered through multiple layers of history, time, and limited human imagination and work. In a phrase commonly attributed to Karl Barth, Paul's is the first Christian theology, and all the rest that has since followed are only commentaries. I take much of Paul with a pinch of salt. While the contents of the first letter to Timothy and its restrictions of women teaching and preaching can be taken as simple delulu, my Gen Alpha friend David told me that I should get with it and learn new words. So this is a contribution. So it's a simple delulu. One can also read the text against the grain and say that the author of this letter is struggling precisely with the many examples of women's leadership that is already visible in this context. Why prohibit something unless it's already there? If you have taken classes with Professor So, and I need to one of these days, or will take classes with her, you know that scholars are quite divided on whether Paul actually wrote these letters himself. Since authorship is in contention here, I will simply refer to the writer of this letter as the author instead of referring to him as Paul. He raises me, I raise him. I have a lot more to say. In scholarly materials, the letters to Timothy and the church in Ephesus are considered Deuteropauline, which means that it is most likely written by followers of Paul. What is interesting to me about the city of Ephesus is that it was, at the time, a wealthy and cosmopolitan hub of trade and intermixing of various cultures, various religions, but known particularly for its great temple to Artemis, the local goddess, known to the Romans as Diana, often identified with the worship of the moon. In other words, Ephesus is a highly religiously and culturally pluralistic setting, with this young religion, not yet known as Christianity, competing with many other strong religious and cultural traditions. Reading against the grain, then, if we read the beginning of the second letter to Timothy, we note that Timothy himself came to his life of faith through his grandmother, Lois, and his mother, Eunice. Reading with the hermeneutics of generosity, which I'm known to have once in a while, and coloring beyond the lines, as Ms. Anne advised me to do, a feminist surmises that the author of the letter is careful not to alienate Timothy, to remind him of his life through his mothers. In verses 8, 9, and 10, after this pericope, the author also refers to his life of imprisonment, of suffering, and of imminent death. While a feminist reading struggles with the misogynistic and homophobic tenor of the letters, there are also many things in the letters to commend, such as the care of widows and the care of community. What we may learn from an imaginative and theological exercise if we start with the experiences of Lois and Eunice, instead of the focus on right behavior, as the pericope emphasizes. In that frame, verse 7 seems to be the heart of the entire letter. For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or cowardice or fear, but of power and of love and of sound judgment and personal discipline. I like to think that Lois and Eunice were exactly the kind of women who were not cowardly or timid, but possessed power, love, judgment, and discipline. Timothy, therefore, is being asked to do likewise, to persist similarly in terms of his ministerial and ecclesial leadership. They were the role models. Perhaps Lois and Eunice were widows, struggling with uncertainty about their own future and Timothy's future. Perhaps both Lois and Eunice had prayed desperately for a child to Artemis. That was Artemis's role. Artemis was the goddess of fertility. And each was blessed with a child whose future then becomes the overweening concern of its mother. Ephesus was a religiously pluralistic environment, much like ours. And in this kind of environment, one can imagine multiple religious belonging. Given the everyday suffering that they lived, Lois and Eunice might have found solace and consolation in the story of the man from Galilee whose suffering and death resonated with their own lives while also praying to Artemis. Perhaps also Eunice and Lois saw in Timothy a young man who was easily influenced by others. Perhaps they discerned in him a foolish spirit that gave in to fear and shame, or lust, or bombastic debates. Perhaps they intuited that given all the choices before him, Timothy was descending into a desperation for a clear path and a firm truth. Perhaps they were sad for him because there was no good male model for him, especially if they were widows. Perhaps they initiated the conversation with the author of the letter to Timothy and interceded on Timothy's behalf for some guidance and understanding. Perhaps they pushed Timothy forward as a leader, precisely because they could see that they could lose him to other elements in the surrounding culture. Perhaps they saw in him a potential that Timothy himself couldn't see. In such a reimagination, the concerns of women about their children converges with the male author's encouragement that fear, suffering, and even death are to be anticipated. This is life, after all. Leadership is to be acutely aware of, and perhaps even to experience acutely, such sorrow, sometimes in radical loneliness. I can imagine these two women quietly speaking among themselves and wondering how to warn little Timmy about the realities of life. The author of the second letter of Timothy emphasizes all this. In highlighting Timothy's mothers, the author is signaling that one becomes a leader only in family and community for the sake of family and community. Leadership is not just about power and visibility, but about being a channel for competing desires and goods. In such a web of relationship, the leader has to have confidence in their calling, their vocation, rooted and grounded in a primary relationship to God and community. This, of course, happens in an embodied way. Being unafraid for Timothy is the gift that is given to him by the laying of hands. The power of fearlessness, therefore, comes about in embodied relationship through touch and skin, for the sake of the community. Timothy, of course, would have been caressed into being first by his mother and his grandmother. They have already made him ready to receive the commissioning touch of others who will acknowledge his leadership. There is additional exhortation here for discipline and sound mind. I hear in the background a grandmother and mother worrying about Timothy's youth and wondering whether he would amount to much. I imagine that they communicated with the author of the letter and specifically asked the author to make sure that Timothy does not end up like a Liberty Gibbet. That was for him. With a confused and chaotic mind and heart. I can imagine that Lois and Eunice did not want Timothy to be a shouty, noisy kind of leader, but similar to themselves, calm, poised, collected, deliberate, with a focus on a livable future. Perhaps in their own journey of discipleship and their relationship to Jesus, they recognize that suffering, pain, and death are paths to salvation and redemption, and that to follow the one they call the Christ, the Anointed One, these were Greek-speaking communities after all, was to accept the path of pain with trust and fortitude. Their faith is the faith of many women who realize that they are the ones who realize that it is the ones who come after them who will change and transform the world. They are the ones who realize that their work is to prepare the way, not to be the way. The author concedes as much. Timothy has been exposed to a relationship with God and Jesus from his infancy by Lois and Eunice. He has already been evangelized too. He has been taught well and now needs to act on the strength of that legacy. What the mothers have given to him is to reach for a future in spite of being surrounded by violence, rigid and social religious boundaries, and deep uncertainty. Eunice and Lois had prepared the way for Timothy. Self-discipline, especially to keep one's focus on the future and the health of the community. One cannot, in this context, give in to despair and agony. It holds the self to a different standard of being, not for oneself, but for the sake of others. Everything gets redefined here as it relates to the needs of the community. Self-discipline and sound mind here means rebuilding, rerouting, and regrounding, just like basilicas and cathedrals. Especially because the fires will come, the earthquakes will come, the calamities will invariably arrive. Timothy needs to see that his pain is actually not unique or exemplary. His mothers and others have been through a lot of this already, and through power and courage and self-discipline, they care for him and their people with steadfast love and encourage him to do the same. The story of Christianity, as you know, or you will learn that here, cannot be a simple one of imperial supremacy or supersessionism, where we simply forget the contentious context in which it emerged and which it is currently engaged. It is uncomfortable, it could be uncomfortable to some of us that the contending realities of multiple religions can and do challenge a mindset in which we think that we alone possess the truth. On this holy hill, that is not permitted. Of course, the religions of Artemis and Diana, judged harshly as pagan and severely persecuted well into the 5th and 6th centuries, now seem to have been forgotten and erased. Yet they persist. Traces of their temples are to be seen all over the Mediterranean, and they're around. In 2017, NASA established a moon landing and space program named the Artemis Program, aimed at establishing a permanent human base on the moon, which will then become the first step towards a human mission to Mars. Artemis 2 will launch a crewed lunar flyby. It was supposed to happen February 8th, but I just read this morning that they're postponing it to March. I read this news, it's important to me. They are planning for a landing on the moon in 2028. You see, the mothers and goddesses are still here. They are casting their children into an yet unknown future. We are meant to live among the stars, as was always our destiny. We are challenged to do so for the sake of the entire human race. And we must do so with courage and power, in trust, in love, and in self-discipline. Amen.
birthing, regrowing, construction. Birthing is a process that has pain and joy. On this holy hill, things are complicated. Hear that noise. This semester, we are very intentful of hearing and stopping. There is a sound of grief, a sound of joy, and a sound of. It's a new journey for many. This semester is a closing for many onto new places. This is the time we gather as community, rooted through the interwebs, through the Badè, through the rough conversations, the easy conversations, through the discussion board post in Moodle, to discussions in classrooms, because we are the parents, the uncles, the caregivers of the next generation. We are rerouted, replanted, even when we don't want to be. Because that, as we all are leaders, is what we are tasked with, what we have chosen because of the connections. We are about to hear some words by the incomparable Jan Richardson, similar to the humans who will now be on other planets, from the book How the Stars Get in Your Bones, a book of blessings. What the night is for.
Oh, my heart, if we could cease working on our sorrow like we were trying to stitch together shattered glass.
This breaking is not for fixing, as though if we could just find the fitting tool, everything would tumble into its place, joined and whole.
Perhaps it is time to let the shards lie where they have fallen.
Perhaps it is the time to let ourselves sit and weep over them.
And then perhaps we scatter them into the soil, into the sky. It does not matter where.
Let them take their place, their place.
Let them shimmer like a constellation in all that darkness. Sky dark, soil dark. At home in that strange and radiant solace that knows what the night is for. How it takes the broken things and sets them shining to light our way from here.
Fire of commitment.
Put a song first.
From the light of
Days remember, so we can bright and weekends and hearts and spirits into place that bring from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, in our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
second verse. From the stories
When our hunger and our passion lead to
verse, last verse. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice, built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, we remember deep assurance of the flame that burns within, and our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin.
A blessing for your journey. Let us vow to bear witness to the wholeness of life, realizing the completeness of each and everything. Embracing our differences, I shall know myself as you, and you as myself. May we serve each other for all our days, here, there, and everywhere.
Let us vow to open ourselves to the abundance of life, freely giving and receiving. I shall care for you, for the trees and stars, as treasures of my own. May we be grateful for all of our days, here, there, and everywhere.
Let us now vow to forgive all hurts caused by ourselves and others, and to never condone hurtful ways, being responsible for my actions. I shall free myself and you. Will you free me too? May we be kind for all our days, here, there, and everywhere.
Let us vow to remember that all that appears will disappear. In the midst of uncertainty, I shall sow love. Here, now, I call to you. Let us together live the great peace that we are. May we give no fear for all our days, here, there, and everywhere.